throughout every generation, from way in the past until now. If I'm not mistaken, part 2 has just started right now. So this is part 2. I don't even know what I'm going to name the video or what I'm going to say this video's name should be. But I'm talking to the men. And I need the women to hear this also. The man is the head. I don't care what anybody say. The Most High, when he created this earth right here, he created it to be in a certain order. Okay? And that's his way, and that's the way it should be, and no human being has the right to change that. Satan is about disorder. He's about trying to mess up everything that the Most High has placed in order. That's why, really, when it even comes to intermingling animals to produce this animal, it wasn't never supposed to be. You're never supposed to, crossbreeding is not even the way that it's supposed to be. That's an out of order thing that the Most High doesn't like, but humans do it. Crossbreeding shouldn't be. So my point to what I'm saying to you is that the man is the head, and the Most High created it to be that way. But the problem and situation is that a lot of us, we don't know how to be men. We don't know how to be men. A lot of us. Because there's things that need to be taught. There's some people, there's some males that don't know how to be a man, but as they get older, they gain the maturity to know how to be men. And then you have men who never mature, so they grow old even into their older age, and they still don't know how to be men. So otherwise they have taken on families, they have taken on a wife or a woman, a companion, but they don't know how to be a true man to that woman, or a true husband to that woman, or a true male friend to that woman. But in order for this to work, you have to have a mature man and a mature woman. You can't have a man that's a fool and a woman that's a fool, and then they get together and now everything is supposed to be all right. It's not supposed to be that way. So even in my case, my mother raised us. I had no clue how to be a man. My mother couldn't. A woman cannot tell me. My mother can't tell me how to be a man and how a man think, because she's a female by nature. She could tell me everything that she thinks, or even give me some good pointers. But my mother was not qualified to teach me how to be a man, or how a man thinks. It's impossible. A woman can't do that because she's a female by nature. By order of the Most High, she's a female. So she can't teach a boy how to be a man. No more than a man. Like, I can't teach my daughters how to grow up and be a woman, because I'm a man. I can tell my daughters good points, and I could tell her what I've seen in women to be a good woman, just like a woman can tell a boy things that she's seen in other men in hopes that he pick up those good qualities. But a woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man, and a man cannot teach a girl how to grow up and be a woman, because we're not that. So therefore, when the Most High created this earth, he created it with a balance. There's always supposed to be a balance. Like this balance right here is supposed to be supported by this balance, and this balance right here is supposed to be supported by this balance. That's the Most High's doing. Order. O-R-D-E-R. Order. That's the Most High's way. That's his way. Order. Satan on the other half, on the other side, when I'm trying to think of my word, he's against the Most High. I stumbled in that, but that's all right. You understand what I'm saying, or what I was trying to say. Satan is all about disorder. Demons are all about disorder. So they easily can get into a human being's mind. So a man grows up into a teenager and he never had a true mature father figure in his life, and now he's a teenager. He's growing hair between his legs, he's growing hair under his arms, his voice is getting deeper, he's growing a little hair on his face, mustache is coming along. So now he's feeling himself, and he lives his life and he does the things that he think a man is supposed to do, or he lives in the way that he thinks a man is supposed to live. But he's uneducated, he has no knowledge in how to be a man, so he becomes a fool, or he becomes simple-minded, or he becomes ignorant, and he becomes making so many foolish mistakes trying to find himself, because he never had an older, mature man teach him how to be a man. So what we need, and what I'm calling for, is I'm calling for all the mature men. Let us get together and let us teach these young boys and these little boys how to grow up and be a man. My father, and I just started calling him father since he died. He died around September of 2015. Before that, I used to call him biological. I was raised and born in Detroit, Michigan. My father lived in Detroit, Michigan. But he got up day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and never stopped by the house to visit me and my brothers. Never to find out if we had food to eat, if we had a roof over our head. He didn't teach me nothing about life, or how to act, how to be, how to carry myself, how to toughen up, how to be a man, what to expect in life as a future. He did none of that. So I can never understand, how can you get up day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and have no dealings with your children, knowing you have children running around, walking around, and living on this earth, and especially when you're in the same city with them. I lived in Pennsylvania when my father died, and when he died, I went to his funeral just because he was my father and out of respect. But when I was at his funeral, I felt like a stranger because I didn't know him. Okay? And let me say this too. When they get up, during funerals, they ask, do anyone want to come up and say a few words? They let a few people come up in the funeral, say a few words reminiscing about that individual that died. Okay? This woman, was it a woman? It was a man. I can't remember if it was a man or a woman, but an individual got up and was talking about my father, because when my father lived, he lived across the street from an elementary school. And the person got up and was saying how my father, that individual, and another individual used to stand out while the children were going to school and say, clapping their hands, good job, stay in school, you're doing a good thing, you're doing a good thing, and saying all types of stuff to encourage those children. And that's a good thing. I'm all for that. But when that was said at the funeral, I felt some type of way about that, because I was like, he never ever did that to me. He never ever did that to my brothers. Never. Ever. Never. He died, when my father died, he was like, I think if I'm not mistaken, 74 years old. So all the way up to 74 years old, he never got the knowledge to come and visit me. And you might say, well, you could have visited him when you got older. Let me say something to you. Ever since the 90s, I moved from Detroit on August of 1990. I'm going to say from like 1996 and 1995, every time I went to Detroit and visited my family and my brothers, I went to visit him. I looked him up, found out where he lived. Every time I went to Detroit, I always made it an important step in my visit to Detroit to stop and visit him. I would stop by, visit him, be in his house. One time we went to my aunt's house. I would ride around while he did stuff and talk to him. And I also told him, I said, you know what? I told my father, I said, all of that with, because I feel like he probably feels some type of way, man, now I'm with my son. I never did anything to him. I haven't did nothing for him. I never gave him no money, never told him about life. I didn't do anything. So I feel kind of embarrassed. So I kind of figured that. I say, well, he might feel some type of way. So let me make him feel comfortable. So one day we was in the car and I told him, I said, you know what? All that happened all of that as far as you and me not having a relationship, I say, I'm not upset with you about that. I say, I forgive you for all of that. I say, it's not about yesterday. It's nothing we can do to bring those times back, but we can start today. And we can have a relationship today. And I told him that. So every time I would go to Detroit, hey, let me get your number. I'm going to get your call. I would leave Detroit when the time came for me to leave, because I lived down in Maryland too back then. So rather, when I lived in Maryland, when I came back, and when I've been up here, and since I've been living in Pennsylvania, and ever since I've been living in whatever state I was living in, I would give him a call. I would come back to Detroit, come back to where I live, and I would call him, ring him. He never answered the phone. But when I would go back to Detroit, I would still look him up and visit him. I did that for years. I did that for over 10 years. And then the time came where I said, you know what? Forget this. What I'm going to keep looking him up for? He don't want a relationship with me. He's not calling, returning my calls. And when I call, he's not answering. But every time I go to Detroit, hey, can I get your number? I'm going to give you a call. Every time. So within the last 2 or 3 years, I'm gonna say you leave it like that at 2 or 3 years. I was gonna say 2, but let me throw 3 in there. So the last 2 or 3 years before his death, I told myself, I'm not going to visit him no more, because the last time when I saw him and he asked me, can I get your number? I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I'm not going to give you my number. I said, for years, every time I come up, you always ask me for my number. My number has been the same for years. When I call you, you don't answer the phone and you don't return my call. So it's a waste of time for me to keep doing this and going around the rosy with you and being on this merry-go-round ride with you. It's a waste of time. So you know what? When I come to Detroit, I'll see you. If I see you, I see you. If I don't, I don't. And that's what I told him. I literally told him that. And he didn't say anything. But you know what? As time went on, I was like, I ain't looking him up. He didn't do nothing for me in my life. He never even tried to be in my life. And now that I'm grown, he's still not trying to be in my life. So why am I chasing a man who don't want to be in my life? That's stupid. He's letting me know through his action. Because I don't look at mouth anyway. I always look at actions. A person's actions tell who they are. Their actions tell what they are from their heart. So I said, this man clearly doesn't want anything to do with me. He let me know that in childhood, and now he's letting me know that in manhood. And I'm going to tell you, one time I'm not ashamed, because I say it because I know there's children that's going through this same situation today. I was badly abused mentally and physically as a child. I lived in my household scared of my mother's footsteps. Okay? One day I was talking to my father and I just told him, I said, because I wanted to know. And I asked him, I said, I got abused real bad through all of my childhood. I had no peace, I had no rest. It was terrible, to the point to where I turned suicidal. You see, it's a lot of terrible things happened to me. And I attempted suicide at the age, I thought about it real hard, to where I couldn't even sleep at the age of 16. I attempted it at the age of 22, and then again at the age of 27. And because the victim, just get over it. It's not like that. But I'm not trying to go into that subject, because I want to stick on the subject of men. But so when I was with my father one day, went to Detroit and was visiting him, I let him know. I said, you know what, I got abused real bad. And I just always wondered, if you and my mother never got a divorce, would I still have went through what I went through, or what you had stuck up for me or taken up for me? And I needed him. That's how I know, even as a grown man, a lot of times we still had a little boy that lives in us. And I reckon that a woman may be the same. Even though she's grown, she might still have that little girl inside of her. Same thing. That's when I really recognized that I still had a little boy inside of me. Experienced life, went through a lot of things, a lot of situations in life, but I still had a little man. A little boy inside of me. Raised a family, raised sons, raised daughters. Now I'm raising daughters. You know, daughters almost getting there anyway. You know, but I'm just saying, I experienced life. And I was in Detroit, and I said that to my father. You know, I said, I wonder if you were still there, would I have still went through the things that I went through? And you know what I really needed him to say? I really needed him to say, you know, Tommy, if I was there, you wouldn't have to go through all of that, because I would have made sure everything in that household that was going on was fair and true and real. And I would have made sure that my household was ran correctly with no shady or foolishness, no child abuse. That's what I needed, and that's what I needed to hear. That would have been so satisfaction to me, such a satisfaction to me. It would have, I probably would have cried. Because that's what the little boy really just still crying out inside of me. But instead, my father told me this. He said, you know what? He just avoided the whole question that I asked him. And he said, you know what? If I was still there, no, this what he said. He said, I had to get away from your mother, because if I would have stayed there, I would have killed her, because she was crazy. That's what he said. But that's not what I needed to hear. Nor did I get upset with him for what he said, because I know how my mother was coming up too. I didn't get upset over that, what he said, but he didn't satisfy what I needed to hear. He didn't satisfy what the little boy inside of me needed to hear. Even though I'm rusty, a big old rusty grown man, I still needed to hear that on the inside. And after that, I was through with him. I was through with him, you know, and I never went to go visit him again. So when I got a phone call, I can't even remember who called me, and they told me that my father died. I told myself, let me go to the funeral. He's still my blood, regardless, still my father. So let me go to the funeral. And that's what I did. So I went to Detroit, and I went to his funeral. I never ever disrespected him. When I was coming up, I used to always tell myself, I got some choice words for him, not cursing, because I've never been a person that used profanity. I believe that you can get your point across constructively without all that cursing and foolishness. They say anyway, when a person curses, is because they lack vocabulary. Their vocabulary is weak. So they have to say curse words to make up for the words that they don't know and that they don't have the knowledge of in their head. But I used to always tell myself as a teenager, when I see that fella, I'm going to have some words for him and let him know how I feel. You see? But I didn't, and the reason why I didn't, because I always knew God was real. So there's lines that I never crossed. There's not one time mentally, physically, now I'm going to say verbally and physically, have I ever disrespected my mother or father. And if you know how I lived, you know how I lived. So if I can make it through all the things that I went through and raise my sons upright, you see, this is what I did. I used all the dysfunctional stuff that happened to me in my life, all my punishment, all my torture, all my abuse, and I worked to turn it and flip it over so I would not be the same way towards my sons, towards my daughters. So when my daughters, and I wish they were here and they could tell you, when my sons and when my daughters, I showed them love. And I still show them love, but I raised them, I told them about life. They lived with